You really want me to show you some moves, don't you? I know what you want. I know what you want. You want me to show you what moves to make. Well, let me talk about puzzles, chess puzzles. Chess puzzles are great. Chess puzzles is how I learn tactics. That's right. Most of the puzzles I'm going to show you have to do with the middle game, where you're trying to win material, and the end game, where you're going for checkmate. To me, those are two very important things. One actually leads to the other. When you can dominate with material, that's going to lead to a victory. If you can see checkmate in one move, two moves, that's going to lead to a victory. And that's what it's about. You do want to win your games of chess, and I'm going to show you how. Okay? I'm going to show you how to break down a puzzle. There is a way to answer all puzzles. And then how do you translate that into your game? Well, guess what? Every time a piece moves on the chessboard, we've created a new puzzle. That's right, the elements change. Every time a piece moves, there are new pieces that are under attack, old pieces that are no longer under attack, and there's always check. Keeping up with check becomes super important the whole way through a chess game. I didn't say take every check. I said keep up with them. Please notice them. I see way too many games where people are just moving, taking pieces, thinking that's all they're supposed to do, not occurring to them that, guess what? You have checkmate in one move. You can end the game right now. The game can be over right now. But you're not looking for check. So guess what? You won't find checkmate. If you're not looking for check, which is half a checkmate, you won't find checkmate. It's that simple. If you're looking to take pieces, take pieces, take pieces, take pieces, you don't win the game strictly by taking pieces. Taking pieces is supposed to lead to a material advantage. Once you recognize your material advantage, that's your way, your road to checkmate. Okay? So, I'm going to set up some puzzles. I'm going to start with some easy one-move puzzles. In the one-move puzzles, it's really about recognition. I'm going to be talking about recognition. I'm going to be showing you how to use the threes of chess to analyze where you are in the game. Mostly middle game, sometimes end game. Okay? Show you how to use tempo to be in control. That's right, tempo is how you're going to really control a lot of the puzzles in chess. We'll talk about tempo later. I'm going to have to do a whole video just on tempo so you can understand exactly what tempo is and how it affects a chess game. During the puzzles themselves, I will explain how tempo is affecting the game, and hopefully you will get it from that. So let's start out with some, let me explain. All puzzles are solved in the same manner. When it's your turn, the first thing you should look for is checkmate. That's right, checkmate in one move. So to find checkmate in one move, part 1 and part 2 are combined. You must search out all the checks. Look where the checks are, and if you check the king, show the best way to get out of the check. A lot of times there's only one way to get out of the check. Sometimes there's multiple ways to get out of the check, but only one way that makes sense. And you always want to make the best move for your opponent. Don't assume they're going to make bad moves. If you're playing a good chess player, they're not going to make all bad moves. They may make some bad moves because it's hard to see every good move in chess. So, step number 1, mate in 1. Look for check. Examine all the checks. If there's a check that the king cannot, or the opposite side cannot capture to get out of the check, they cannot block, there's no piece that can block the attack, and the king cannot move out of the check. That's the threes of chess again. Capture, block, move. That's where they come in. Threes of chess. There's only 3 ways to get out of check. Capture, block, run away. Running away is always last. Don't make it first. If you make running away your first thing you do when you're in check, you're just going to get checkmated a lot. I mean a lot. Okay, so make sure when you can capture that you capture. And if you can block, it's usually better to block than to move. But take the best choice. If moving is the best choice, then that's what you should do. Okay? Make sure you look at your options. So, look for mate in 1. And then, if there is no mate in 1, well, you still have to examine what the checks do. And what we're looking for is pattern recognition. Yeah, I'm going to be going through pattern recognition, the threes of chess, tactics, and tempo. Boy, sounds like a lot. I sure put a lot on your plate right then. Sounded like more than 3 things to me. But all these things are important elements in figuring out your next move. Because that's why you're here. You got to that point in the game, you're like, what do I do now? I got the game started. I got some knights. I got my bishops out. I even have my king castle. I guess I'm ready for some middle game stuff. So where should I start? Going to the center of the board is never a bad thing to do. And notice where your opponent's king is. That's the side of the board where most of the attack is going to occur. Unless the other side of the board is weak and you have options there as well. Alright, so we're going to look at some puzzles. I'm going to look at 1 move puzzles first. The 1 move puzzles will show the position, the pattern, let's say, that you need to recognize in order to get checkmate. So I'm going to show, we're going to do some easy checkmate puzzles first, and then we're going to do some more difficult ones where you have to look at more elements, where you have to combine other tactics. That's right, combining tactics is a powerful way to beat your opponent. That's right, you could put a fork with a pen. That's right. There's lots of tactics that can be combined in chess. While one tactic is going on, you throw another tactic in there to help it. Your opponent's going to fall if you have tactics going here, tactics going there, tactics in the... There's no way for your opponent to stop every tactic. Alright, so let's do some puzzle solving. I'm going to set up some puzzles. I'm going to play mostly from the white side. And don't be discouraged about playing black. I'm going to have to do some puzzles where black is in control. I think we use the white side because in chess, white moves first. White moves first. So I think we do puzzles from the white side simply because white moves first in a chess game, and that's the way people think. But I don't want you to think that these puzzles are only from the white side of the board. Every single puzzle can occur either on the white or the black. There are no tactics that occur only on one side. All the tactics are applicable to both sides of the chessboard. You just have to find them through pattern recognition. I'm going to help you with that. Come back to the Coach's Corner. Look up some of my puzzle videos. Puzzle videos with recognition. Puzzle videos with 1 move. Puzzle videos with 2 moves. And yes, puzzle videos with 3 moves. That's right, you gotta think 3 moves ahead in chess, not just one. Yeah, if somebody makes a bad move and puts themselves in a bad position, you could take advantage of it. But why would I wait for my opponent to put himself in a bad position for me to make a good move? If I can control my opponent, I'll make him get in a bad position. Yeah, I'll force his man into the bad position that I can put the tactic on. Because I already recognize the pattern, I just have to make the men on the board stand in that pattern. I'll show you what I mean. Come to some puzzle videos, watch the puzzle videos, I'll show you how to solve puzzles, and then you can go to chess.com, Lead Chess, any type of tactical chess book. I recommend do tactics. 99% of your game is won through tactical play. If you cannot put tactics on your opponent, you really can't win a game. You have to wait until he actually just gives you something. I don't want to play chess like that. He may never give me anything. The better you get at chess, the fewer things your opponent's going to give you. That's right, that's beginners giving stuff away. You might hear me make some comments about beginners and intermediate. There's certain things that beginner chess players do that makes them beginners, and things that intermediate chess players do that makes them what? Intermediate players, better than beginners. And the advanced players do certain things that make them even better than the beginner and the intermediate player. If you want to get out of being a beginner chess player, losing a bunch of games, losing every game you play, are you tired of getting checkmated and don't know why? Come back to the Coach's Corner. I'm going to help you get out of that. Okay? Leave me a comment. Ask questions. I'm going to have plenty of videos. More videos are to come. I'm getting the materials together. I'm going to show you how to solve puzzles, tactical puzzles, endgame puzzles. I'm going to show you how to get checkmate. I'm going to show you how to win a game of chess. But yeah, that's where I'm going to show you the moves. Most of the time, I tell you what to think. Here on the puzzles, I'm actually going to show you pattern recognition, tempo, pattern recognition, huge. I repeat, pattern recognition. You'll see when I describe the puzzles how pattern recognition comes into play. We're going to start with the most common tactic in chess. What's the most common tactic in chess, guys? You probably do it all the time and don't know it. It's the fork. That's right. One chess piece attacking 2 enemy pieces from one square. Every single piece on the chessboard has the ability to fork enemy pieces. You have to find the pattern. We'll show you in a minute. This is Coach Thomas. Come back to the Coach's Corner. I got plenty to show you. I'm actually going to show you how to think, how to solve puzzles, how to be a good chess player, how to do your tactics, what tactics are, when to use them. I'm going to show it all to you right here in the Coach's Corner. Come back and see me. Talk to you later. Once again, another checkmate in one move puzzle. Checkmate in one move. Once again, we have different elements here on the chessboard. Different things to look at. When we look at checkmating the king, we look at what pieces can even check the king, which pieces can attack the king. Well, we look like we have quite a few here. We have the rook. But that checkmate is stopped by a block. There's a block. That is not checkmate. There is also the problem here. The queen has the same problem. She can go down and check the king, but she's blocked by the rook. Does no good. Does no good. Check by these two pieces does not end in mate. Well, how about the rook over here? The bishop can't check the king, but we can see that clearly my favorite element is in charge. Discovery. We move the bishop and the rook gives check to the king. That's right, the rook gives check to the king. But the thing is, he gets blocked again, doesn't he? Blocked by the rook. Remember, that's the problem. Blocked by the rook. Is there something the bishop can do? Remember, in a discovery, it's always important what you do with the man that moves. The man that causes the discovery in the first place. By moving out of the way, he has to move to the correct square. And in this case, the correct square is the square that blocks the rook from blocking, prevents the block of the rook. Because guess what? They don't have time to take the bishop and block the rook. You have to block the rook in this one move right now. And black cannot do it. There is no black piece that can come to the rescue now. This is checkmate because the king discovered checkmate. The rook has the king under attack and there is no black piece that can capture the rook. There is no black piece that can go on one of those squares to block his attack. And there is no square for the king to move to. This king is trapped behind his own pawns. Notice he's not captured, but he is trapped. He is trapped back there. He can't get out. He can't get out. That's checkmate every time. Okay? So we looked at some very... we started with easy checkmates. These are all mate in one move. No matter how many pieces are on the board, you still have to see the checkmate in one move. Okay, pay attention to your game. You will be successful if you can see checkmate in one. That's how you win a lot of games in chess. Pay attention. You'll see it. Okay, left one of the pieces off the puzzle, the pawn. Let's start this over. Okay. Because that does make a difference in the answer. It sure does. Every piece counts. Every piece is doing their job. The pawn has a job to do as well. He's blocking the king's escape here and here as well. We have the bishop that can check the king in one position. Let's check that out. Check. How does that king get away from that? Huh? Well, actually, he can block. He may not want to put his rook there to block, but that is the way he is forced to get out of check. You can force a piece in your way. Okay, so that's a block. That is not checkmate. So let's put the bishop back. The bishop cannot checkmate the king. That's his only check. The knight cannot checkmate the king for the reason he blocks his bishop. Okay. The knight cannot. How about the queen? I believe the queen has the same problem that the bishop had. She gets blocked. Blocked by the rook. Absolutely, gets blocked. Alright. Is that her only check? No, she can go all the way down here and check the king. But there's another problem there. We get blocked again. The rook comes up to block the queen. Okay. Checkmate in one move. One move. Is there another check for the queen? Let's see. The queen can't go this way, that way. Let's see if she can go all the way across the board to find check. How about that check? Can any black piece capture the queen? No. Can any black piece go on one of these squares to block her attack? No. Can the king move to a square that is not under attack by black? Well, the pawn prevents this and the bishop prevents this. Checkmate. Queen A3. Checkmate. You have to use your eyes. You have to recognize which squares check the king. One of the squares is checkmate. I promise you, there is a checkmate on every puzzle. You have to find the check that cannot stop, that cannot be stopped. Okay? A check that the king cannot get out of, either by capture, block, or move. All right, let's move on to the next puzzle. Okay, another checkmate puzzle, another mate in one. Another mate in one. Okay, look at the pieces that can check the king. The rook can check the king. The queen can check the king. The knight can check the king. Any other pieces that can check the king? The bishop? Nah, the knight's in his way, so he cannot check the king. If the knight wasn't there, he could check the king, but the knight is in his way. He cannot check the king. The pawns, this rook cannot check the king. So it's between this rook, the queen, or the knight. Let's start with the rook. There's only one check with the rook. I think it's quite easy to see how that king gets out of this check. He captures. That's right, he captures the rook. Not checkmate. The queen only has one check. No, she has two. This check, not a good check. We see she gets captured. The other check is right here. She gets captured again, not by the king, but by the knight. She gets captured. Number one thing to look for when the king is in check, the number one thing to look for is a capture, not a move, a capture to get out of check. So we say the knight can check. The knight can check the king here as well as here. When we check here, we say, well, the knight can get captured, not by the rook, because the rook actually becomes pinned by the bishop when the knight moves. We have discovered a pin, an attack. That's a discovered attack. My favorite tactic, discovery, once again. There it is applied as an attack, not a check. The queen can capture the knight though, and that eliminates that. Okay, let's look at the other check. The other check is here. Now we say there's a couple pieces look like they could capture the knight. The pawn, for one. But he can't capture the knight because he's pinned by the queen. How about the rook? The rook could capture the knight, but like we said, when we move the knight out of the way, the bishop is pinning the rook. The rook is pinned. The pawn is pinned. This knight is totally safe in this square. That's what you have to recognize. To see this checkmate, you must understand that the rook cannot take the knight and the pawn cannot capture that knight because they are pinned. This is when you start to learn about the other elements of a chess game that win the game. Tactics. Tactics. You have to know tactics. There is no capture. There is no blocking of a knight. And that king cannot move to a safe square. Knight f6. Checkmate. Let's go on to the next puzzle. Got to notice this. One move checkmates, they can happen. You have to constantly be looking at your checks in order to find them. Most beginners never would have found that check. Never would have found it because they're not looking for checkmate. They're looking to take pieces. Back to our checkmate in one move videos. Checkmate in one move. White to move. All of these checkmate in one videos are always white to move. Checkmate in one move. Checkmate is found by checking the king and making sure the king cannot escape the check. We never take the king in chess. The king stays on the board the whole game. What we do is we create a position where the king can't get out of trouble. That's right. Back to my favorite tactic. What's my favorite tactic? If you know Coach Thomas by now, you know that his favorite tactic is discovery. Love discoveries. Discoveries change games. Every time you use a discovery, the game usually changes big time. Discoveries really do a lot of damage to your opponent, so I guess that's why I really do like them. Let's go over again. Once again, a discovery is when you move a piece, and a piece behind it that was doing nothing. The bishop not really doing much right here. All right. But when you move this rook out the way, no matter where you move this rook, if you just move it one square, check. It gives check to the king. No matter where you put the rook, the bishop gives check to the king. So we're going to use that as our check. But what did I say is important in a discovery? What's really important in a discovery is where do you move the guy that moves out of the way and created the discovery to start with. It's very important what you do with this guy. He can go attack another piece that he wants to take. In this case, what he's going to do is make sure the king can't escape to f8. Because that is a constant problem here. If we check there, that king goes to f8. That's right. And if we do this where he can't go to f8, well, guess what? He can go to f7. That's right, the king can go to f7 or f8. We got to put that rook in the right place to stop the king from escaping. So where is that place? Rook f5. Check. I know you're worried about the pawn taking the rook. Well, guess what? There's a priority on check. The check must be taken care of before the pawn can take the rook. Now, how does that king get out of this check? Is there any black piece that can capture this bishop? Got to capture the bishop, not the rook. Nope, no black piece can capture the bishop. Is there any black piece that could go to one of these squares and block the bishop's attack? No, there is no black piece that can go to one of these squares. That's two. Lastly, can that king move to a square that is not under attack by white? If he goes here, this rook stops him. If he tries to jump back in the corner, well, this bishop has that whole line. Can't run into the corner. And now f8 and f7 are covered by the rook that created the discovery. He created the discovery and moved to a square where he stopped the king's escape. And that's why this is checkmate. Rook f5, checkmate. One square. All he had to do is move over one square. And we created a check that the king cannot escape from. I hope you caught on to that. Finding checkmate. If you're watching for your checks from the middle game, you're going to find checkmates all the time while you're playing. People put themselves in danger all the time. Okay, back to another mate in one situation. Another checkmate in one move. Like to explain these puzzles. Didn't realize that it was such a big deal that so many people could not find checkmate in one move on these puzzles. Because this is what I discover. While my students are playing their game, quite often they run into checkmate in one move while they're playing. But they miss it. They miss it quite frequently. So I said, well, what's going on? Why can't they see these obvious checkmates? Oh, then I discovered if you're a beginner chess player, you're not necessarily looking for checkmate when you should be. That's what it is. Beginner players look to take pieces. That's right. They're looking more to take pieces than they are to checkmate the king. Besides, to checkmate the king, you have to keep up with all the checks. But from the middle game until you win the game, you should be looking at all the checks. I didn't say take every check. I didn't say check with the queen just because it's check. Obviously she gets captured, and that check didn't work very good. She's safe here, she doesn't get captured, but this check is not checkmate. That king can get away easily. He can run away. That's right. That's right. No, we want the check that the king cannot get out of. So, to start analyzing this puzzle, the first thing to do, figure out which white pieces can attack the king. Which white pieces can put the king in check. We already saw the queen. We know the queen can. She has several positions she can check that king from. Some of them aren't any good. That's right, she gets captured. None of them are checkmate. Okay, even this check doesn't lead to checkmate. The rook can check the king one time right here. One time check. I like to look at the pieces that only have one check. Check. King gets out of that check. Can't come this way this time. Looks like this G7 square is going to be a constant problem. Let's see, who could take care of that G7 square? How about the bishop? The dark square bishop. So far the queen can check the king. This dark square bishop can check the king here. This check is not very good. He gets captured by the pawn or the king. This one, that takes care of that G7 square, doesn't it? Because the bishop attacks the G7 square. So the king can't move there this time. And he can't move here this time because of this bishop. But where do we start? We start with capture. Who can capture this bishop? Nobody. Is there a black piece that can block the bishop? Stop his attack? Yes. Here we go, right here. This pawn can block the bishop's attack. And the king is out of check. So, that gets the king out of check. Let's put the bishop back because the bishop cannot checkmate the king. We looked at the two checks for the bishop. We looked at check with the rook. We looked at some checks with the queen, but let's consider this knight. This knight. Looks like the knight can block that G7 square from here. He checks the king and he blocks the G7 square. How about the other squares? Are they blocked as well? Because we cannot capture the knight. There is no black piece that can capture the knight. Look around. No black piece. Can't block a knight. Remember, the knight is not attacking a straight line. It's attacking a square. The square the king is in. Can that king move to a square that is not under attack by a white piece? Well, here, the queen. Here, the bishop. Bishop, the dark square bishop, the light square bishop, the knight. The knight took care of that square where the king could escape in most other situations. Checkmate. Knight, H5, checkmate. Let's look at another one.